I never thought my life could change so drastically in a matter of weeks. One day, my parents were there, warm and alive, always calling me for dinner or teasing me about my messy room. And then, just like that, they were gone. My brother, the one I had trusted my entire life, the one who promised he would always look out for me, he walked into my room, looked me straight in the eye, and told me to leave. Pack my things. Leave the house that had been mine too. I was only 24. I didn't understand. I still don't. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the walls, thinking, maybe he's joking. Maybe this is some kind of horrible dream. But he wasn't. He was stone, cold, calm, and frighteningly decisive. I remember the way he said, "It's better this way." But I didn't know what "this way" meant. How could he do this to me, his own sister, after Mom and Dad were gone? And then, just when I thought life couldn't get any stranger, I got a call. From him. He sounded different. Almost cheerful. Though there was something underneath that didn't sit right with me. He said, "By the way, I'm getting married." I laughed at first. I thought it was a bad joke. My brother. Married. He didn't tell me. Just a name, no picture, no introduction. Something about the way he said it made me uneasy. But I brushed it off. Maybe I was just too raw from losing Mom and Dad. But something felt wrong. The kind of wrong that crawls under your skin and doesn't let go. The kind of wrong that makes your chest tight and your stomach twist. I couldn't explain it. I didn't know if it was him, or the timing, or just the fact that I was alone now. The house felt empty. The rooms echoing with memories that didn't include me anymore. And I kept asking myself questions that had no answers. Who was she? Why didn't he tell me? Did he even care that I had nowhere to go? I tried calling him, but he wouldn't answer. Every message I sent seemed to vanish into a void. My friends told me I had to let go, that I couldn't make him see sense. But how do you let go of someone who once meant everything? How do you move on when you don't even understand why they hurt you? I started staying with friends, bouncing from sofa to sofa, all the while feeling invisible, unwanted. I began noticing little things about the house when I passed by. The front door was polished, the lawn trimmed. He had someone keeping up appearances. And that's when it hit me, maybe I wasn't meant to be here anymore. Maybe the life I thought I had, the family I thought I had, was over. I remember sitting in my car one night, staring at the streetlights, feeling utterly lost. That's when I heard a voice on my phone, a YouTube notification from a channel I had been following, Betrayal Uncovered. Normally, I wouldn't have clicked it. But that night, I did. And as the video played, I felt a strange kind of relief, like someone finally understood what it was like to be blindsided by family. To feel abandoned in the people you trusted most. I didn't know it yet, but that video would change the way I saw my brother, my life, and what was about to come. A week later, a lawyer's call changed everything. He said my parents had to be read, and that my brother was already at the office. My heart skipped a beat. I hadn't seen him since he kicked me out. I didn't know if I wanted to go, if I could handle the sight of him. But something inside me, a mix of curiosity and dread, made me agree. The day of the will reading, I walked into that sterile office, my hands trembling, my stomach twisting with a mix of fear and anger, and there he was. My brother. Smiling in a way that didn't reach his eyes, and next to him, someone else. I couldn't see her clearly, just a blur at first, but there was something about her. Something that made my blood run cold. And then, he said her name. I froze. Because that name was familiar. Far too familiar. I don't know how I managed to sit down after that, how I didn't run out screaming. The lawyer started speaking, the papers shuffled. The room felt impossibly small, and every word he said was like a knife twisting deeper into my chest. And just like that, I realized. Nothing in my life would ever be the same again. I couldn't stop thinking about her. The moment I heard her name at the lawyer's office, it clung to me, like a shadow I couldn't shake. Who was she really? My brother didn't introduce us properly, didn't even glance in my direction except to give a polite nod that felt more like a challenge than recognition. Every time I looked at him, I could see it. The distance, the coldness in his eyes. It was as if I had ceased to exist the moment our parents passed. And now, he had someone else filling the space I once held. I tried to convince myself I was imagining things. Maybe it was grief. Maybe it was the anger still coiled in my chest. But I couldn't ignore the little things. The way she smiled at him, not a casual, friendly smile, but a knowing, possessive one. The kind that makes you feel invisible even when you're in the same room. The way she laughed at his jokes before he even finished them. The way my brother looked at her, as if she were the only person who mattered anymore. And the worst part, he didn't seem to notice, or maybe he didn't care, that I was standing there, barely acknowledged, trying to make sense of it all. I kept replaying the will reading in my head. My parents had left instructions. Careful words about what went where, but my brother had handled the whole thing with such ease, such control. He barely let me speak, barely gave me space to process what was happening. And yet, there was this undercurrent, something subtle, almost imperceptible, that didn't sit right with me. Was it her presence? Was it him? Or was it something deeper, something I hadn't yet seen? I began to notice other things too. She seemed to know things she shouldn't. Little details about our parents, memories that only we shared. Things that she could have only known if she had been paying attention, if she had been around in ways I hadn't realized. My stomach tightened every time I caught her glance. It wasn't friendly. It wasn't casual. It was calculating, deliberate. And yet, when I tried to question my own thoughts, I felt this creeping sense of self-doubt. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe I was being paranoid. Anyone in my place would feel suspicious, wouldn't they? Or maybe I was just too fragile from losing Mom and Dad. Then there were the small, almost innocent moments that shouldn't have mattered, but they did. The way she rearranged things in the house when she thought no one was watching. The way she asked questions that seemed harmless, but hinted at knowing more than she should. The way my brother's expression softened when she spoke, but never did that softness extend to me. I began questioning myself constantly. Was I imagining tension where there wasn't any? Was I projecting my grief and anger onto them? But deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Every instinct in me screamed it. Something was wrong. I started keeping notes, little mental records of things I noticed. Who said what when they smiled? What was mentioned and what was avoided? And the more I paid attention, the less I understood. Nothing made sense, and yet, everything felt connected. There were tiny details that didn't add up, phrases my brother used, glances that lasted a little too long, moments of silence that spoke volumes. One afternoon, I decided to stop hiding. I went over to the house, hoping to talk to him, to somehow reclaim some semblance of family or understanding. He answered the door, but the warmth I expected didn't exist. He greeted me politely, yes, but there was a subtle edge to his voice, a distance that cut deeper than words could. And she was there, smiling, welcoming me into a space that I no longer recognized as my own home. Something happened in that living room, something I can't fully describe. She mentioned a memory, an inside joke, a detail from my childhood, and I froze. My heart pounded, and a wave of nausea swept over me. How did she know that? How could she possibly know that? My brother laughed along with her, and I sat there silent, pretending it was nothing, while every part of me screamed that this was very, very wrong. I began noticing patterns. Her presence coincided with my brother's sudden bursts of attention, almost like she controlled it. The way he looked at her, the way he laughed, the way he always seemed to put her first, even in subtle ways, it made my blood boil, and yet it terrified me. I wanted to confront him, to demand answers, but something held me back. Fear, confusion, grief, shame, all tangled together, stopping me from speaking the words I knew I needed to say. One night, I lay awake in a friend's apartment, thinking about everything that had happened, trying to connect the dots. The more I thought, the more pieces fell into place. Memories I had dismissed as coincidences now seemed deliberate. Small things my brother had said, small actions by her. It all started forming a pattern I didn't want to see. And then, the thought hit me, cold and unrelenting. What if I had been wrong about thinking she was just another woman in his life? What if she was something else entirely? The next morning, I received a text from him, just one line. "We need to talk." My chest tightened, my mind raced. Was it about me? About her? About something else I couldn't even imagine? I had no answers, only a gnawing sense of dread. And I realized, with a sinking feeling in my stomach, that I was about to uncover something I wasn't sure I was ready to face. By the time I arrived at the house that afternoon, everything felt heavier, darker. The air itself seemed charged with tension. I could hear her laughter from the living room before I even stepped inside. And as I crossed the threshold, I noticed something that made my heart skip a beat. A photograph, just partially visible on the shelf, one I shouldn't have seen. It was then, standing there frozen, that it hit me. The realization clawed at me like ice through my veins. Something was profoundly, disturbingly wrong. And yet, I couldn't speak, couldn't move, couldn't breathe. All I could do was stare, my mind screaming, my heart pounding. Knowing that whatever truth lay ahead was going to shatter everything I thought I knew, the next few days were a blur. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, and every time my phone buzzed, my stomach flipped. The words, "We need to talk," haunted me like a warning I couldn't escape. I kept replaying every moment from the will reading, every glance, every subtle smile, every hint that had seemed innocent, but now felt like a warning. When I finally went back to the house, my brother met me at the door. His expression was unreadable, calm, but there was tension under the surface, a kind of restraint that made my heart race. I followed him into the living room, where she was waiting. She looked up at me, her smile bright, friendly even, but something in her eyes made my skin crawl. She knew everything, and the way she looked at me. I felt like a stranger intruding on something that had been carefully planned without me. I tried to speak, to demand answers, but my voice caught in my throat. My brother sat down and gestured for me to sit too. The room was quiet except for the faint ticking of a clock. Every second felt drawn out, unbearable. And then, the flashbacks began. Small memories I had buried, moments I had almost forgotten, suddenly made sense. The way she knew things about my parents, the way she seemed to anticipate my brother's every move, the way she slid seamlessly into a life that wasn't hers, it all clicked, and a cold, heavy dread filled me. I remembered a time when I was a teenager, sneaking into the attic to look at old family photos. There had been a photograph of a little girl standing beside my parents, smiling, holding a teddy bear. I hadn't thought much of it back then. Just a friend of a relative maybe. But now, seeing her in the living room, the pieces started to line up in a way that made my stomach twist. The memories that had seemed random, innocent, now carried weight, a hidden meaning I had never noticed. Every instinct screamed that she wasn't just my brother's new wife. Every laugh, every smile, every word carefully chosen, it all felt like manipulation. Like she had stepped into a role she had been preparing for her entire life. And the worst part, my brother seemed unaware, or perhaps unwilling to see, the truth right in front of him. She moved closer, casual, like she owned the space. My chest tightened, and I had to remind myself to breathe. The memories kept crashing over me, little favors she did that seemed harmless, conversations she had steered just so. Glances at my brother that carried a weight I hadn't understood until now. She wasn't just a stranger. She was someone connected to all the cracks in my family. Someone who had slipped quietly into the spaces left behind by my parents' absence. Someone who knew how to take without giving and manipulate without exposing herself. I could see it in my brother's eyes, too. He looked happy, content, completely blind to the undercurrents swirling around him. And I wanted to scream at him, to warn him, to shake him awake, but fear held me in place. Fear of what the truth might do, fear of shattering the fragile threads of what remained. My mind raced. Every detail I had brushed off suddenly screamed for attention. The laughter that didn't reach her eyes. The subtle way she adjusted her posture when I entered the room, the tiny marks of familiarity in her gestures, all pointed to something I couldn't yet fully name. And then, for a fleeting second, she looked at me in a way that froze me. Recognition. Not surprise. Not curiosity, but recognition. as if she had been waiting for me to see her, waiting for me to realize who she really was. I remembered the photograph again, and my heart clenched. All the pieces were here, lining up in ways I hadn't expected, forcing me to confront the possibility that she had been in my life before in ways I had never imagined. And if that were true, if everything was connected in ways I couldn't yet fully grasp, then I was standing on the edge of something irreversible. The room felt smaller, heavier. My brother and she sat across from me, talking quietly, but I couldn't focus on their words. All I could see was the pattern forming, the realization solidifying in my mind. She wasn't who she appeared to be. She was someone who had known us, known me, and known my family, and now she was here, in the house, at the center of everything, and I had no idea what her next move would be. I wanted to turn and run, to escape before the truth came crashing down. But my curiosity, my fear, and the desperate need to understand kept me rooted. Every instinct screamed that the reveal was close, that the moment I had been dreading and hoping for was right around the corner. I could feel it in the air, in the tension stretching taut between us, in the quiet hum of the house that had once been mine. And then she stood up. Slowly. Casually. Her movements deliberate, almost theatrical. My chest tightened, my throat went dry, and my pulse hammered in my ears. Everything I had suspected, every shadow of doubt, every whisper of unease, condensed into a single, suffocating moment. My brother didn't notice. Or maybe he did and didn't care. But I knew. I knew the truth was about to be unveiled, and the moment I saw her face clearly, everything I thought I knew about family, loyalty, and betrayal would collapse. I could feel the weight of it before the final reveal, and the fear clawed at me like ice. My hands shook, my heart raced, and my mind spiraled with all the questions I couldn't yet answer. Who was she? How had she slipped so seamlessly into our lives? What had my brother missed? What had I missed? And most importantly, what did this mean for everything I had left? She stepped forward, just out of reach of my sight, and for a moment, everything froze. The room, the air, the world itself seemed to pause, and I realized, with a gut-wrenching certainty, that the face I was about to see was the key to all the answers I had been seeking, and to the betrayal I had been fearing. And then, just as her face came into view, I blinked. She stepped fully into the light, and my heart stopped. I could see her face clearly now, and every instinct in me screamed in disbelief. It was her, the little girl from the old photograph I had seen years ago, standing with my parents, smiling as if she belonged there. The one I had thought was just a distant memory, just a photo, just a fleeting ghost from the past. She was here, and she was real. I blinked, unable to comprehend. The woman standing before me had grown into someone I barely recognized, but every feature, the eyes, the curve of her smile, the tilt of her head, was a mirror of the little girl I had once seen in that photo. And in that instant, the realization crashed over me like a wave. She had known my family, known my life, long before I had ever imagined. And now she had stepped into it, weaving herself into the space left by my parents' death. I looked at my brother. He smiled at her as if everything was perfect. He didn't see what I saw. Didn't notice the depth of her knowledge, the way she moved with careful intention, or the way she had claimed our home, our memories, and even his affection as if it were her right. I felt anger surge through me, sharp and hot. How could he be blind to this? How could he not see that the person he trusted now had been connected to our lives in ways we hadn't realized? Memories I had buried came rushing back. Small gestures, subtle knowledge, details only a family member could know. The way she referenced things my parents had said. The way she seemed to anticipate my brother's needs. The way she had always seemed just a little too familiar with us. It all made sense now, and yet, it hurt more than I had imagined it could. I felt tears sting my eyes, but I didn't let them fall. I had to see this clearly. I had to understand. And as I studied her face, I realized that her smile, her calm demeanor, her confidence, it was all part of the plan. She had waited quietly, patiently, for the moment when she could step fully into our lives. And she had done it without a single misstep, without revealing the truth until now. The betrayal I felt wasn't just about my brother's blindness. It was about the way she had manipulated every detail, infiltrated our family, and claimed the life that should have been mine. The house that had been my sanctuary now felt alien. Every corner filled with reminders that I was no longer the center, no longer the one who mattered. And yet, underneath all the anger and hurt, there was also a strange clarity. I understood now. I understood why my instincts had screamed, why the tension had felt so unbearable. My brother turned to me, finally noticing my expression. "I know this is a lot," he said, his voice gentle. "But you have to see that she's been part of my life in a way that I never expected." I wanted to scream at him, to tell him he was blind, to tell him how obvious it all had been. But the words caught in my throat. How could I explain what I had pieced together over days of observation and dread? How could I make him understand the depth of the betrayal without shattering him completely? And then she spoke. Her voice was soft, almost melodic, but there was an edge I hadn't noticed before. "I didn't mean for it to happen this way," she said. "But I've waited for this moment a long time." And suddenly, the pieces clicked together. Every seemingly innocent gesture, every word, every smile, it had all been part of a careful plan. She had known exactly what to do, exactly how to position herself. She wasn't just part of my brother's life, she had positioned herself as the center, the anchor, the one who now held all the power in a family that had lost its foundation. I felt a mix of emotions swirling inside me: hurt, betrayal, disbelief, but also relief. Relief that I finally understood. Relief that the shadows and unease that had haunted me were finally clear. Relief that, even though everything had changed, I could see the truth. And in that clarity, I found a small spark of strength. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight lift slightly from my chest. I realized that this story, my story, our story, wasn't over. I still had a place, even if it wasn't the one I had imagined. I had survived grief, abandonment, and betrayal, and I could survive this too. I looked at my brother one last time, then at her, and I let the silence stretch. I didn't need to speak. The truth was visible, undeniable, and it was enough. I had learned, painfully and clearly, that betrayal can come in unexpected forms, from people you least expect, and that understanding it is the first step toward reclaiming your own life. To anyone watching this, know that trust is fragile, and betrayal can be devastating, but clarity, understanding, and self-respect are stronger than any deception. Sometimes, the people we think will protect us are the very ones who hurt us the most, but that doesn't mean we have to remain broken. We can rise. We can reclaim our lives. If this story resonated with you, share it with someone who understands what it feels like to be blindsided by betrayal. Comment below with your thoughts. Have you ever experienced something similar? And remember, even when betrayal cuts deep, clarity and strength can help us heal, piece by piece, day by day.